Hey guys, it's Christian from Emotions in Wine. So as you see, after the good success of most of the Croatian videos, we decided to do this special. It's divided in three parts. So this is the general introduction, really tourist friendly. So for those who know nothing or very little, but also for those who know more, but they don't know much about Croatia, will still be useful. So stick around to know more. Then the next two chapters will be individual videos about two regions each, because there are four main regions in the Croatian territory. So will be two parts. So in this one is a generic intro on everything, basic info, some tips already, but those two videos will be more specific with more information and also more tips about names of wineries, even some places where to go and so on. I hope you will find it interesting, especially if you are planning to go there. So that is the reason why I decided in this moment, because we are approaching summer soon. So Croatia is in the Balkans, on the Adriatic shore, eastern side, so facing Italy. Is a small country, as you can see, and a strange shape, but has a long coast. So from the northernmost to the southernmost point, there are over 500 kilometers. So it's like half Italy length. So it's not that tiny, considering only 4 million people. So it's a long stretch, and then a small body in there. Zagreb is in the northern part, the capital, and considering the small size, the wine regions are quite extended, but the production is very tiny anyway, only 20,000 hectares, which is a fifth of Bordeaux, just imagine. Why? For several reasons, because the wine region doesn't mean that it's all planted, first of all. Then remember, the southern is very hot, like South Italy, so there is dry, very low yield. So tiny production, there are over 100 indigenous varieties, over 200 in total considering the international. So a good heritage, even in this small space. And there are many differences between mostly coast and continental part, but even the coast change a lot between the northern part and the south. The soils, the climate. So there are many differences besides the grapes, of course. So even in this small size, you have a lot of interesting and different characteristics. The beauty of Croatia is also these 1,200 plus islands and islets, only 50 inhabited all year round. Almost all these inhabited have some farming of vineyards, and quality, not quantity. So as we said already, little quantities, but high quality. That's why in average, the wines are not that cheap, but you can still find affordable wines. That depends on your parameters. I avoid entering the specifics about the label because it's very complicated if you know the language, and it has also different ways of talk. So I make it very simple. ZOI, that is the acronym, or can be in full in 3 words. That is the same as DOC, or protected designation. So just look for that. You already know that is a more qualitative wine. So the regions are divided basically in two. The coastal, the two regions there, and the two regions in continental Croatia. There are many differences. Even neighboring regions differ a lot, even in soils, grapes, and everything. So main characteristic of the coast, besides being the most famous and historical, over 2,000 years of vinification is said, there are the most of the indigenous varieties there. The most famous reds, we will see soon, but also whites, both in the south, so in Dalmatia, and also in Istria in the north side. While in the continental, less prestigious, a bit more known now because there is also more tourism in Zagreb nowadays. But there you have more whites, it's a bit cooler, and you have mostly international grapes, plus few important indigenous varieties in some of the regions. So let's start from Istria and Kvarner is the full area, but is two sub-regions. So Istria the most important. Kvarner basically is near Rijeka and the islands there. There is not much, while Istria is the big peninsula with a lot of Italian influence And Malvasia isterska, or called Malvasia istriana in Italy, is the symbol, was the most important first white wine in the country, but not the first appellation. You will see soon. And then they have Teran, which is the characteristic acidic red, then plus some more international grapes. Is prestigious, is Tuscan lookalike, is very developed, even the wineries and everything we will see more in the other chapter. Then there is Dalmatia, in the southern part, divided in three subregions. North Dalmatia, Central South, and Inner Dalmatia, which is bordering Bosnia and Herzegovina. So it's just above the mountainous coast. Here is really the heart to me of the wine production of Croatia. You can understand it also by the fact that Plavac Mali, the king red of the country, I guess most of you heard it, gave the first two appellations of the country in the 60s, Dingac and Postup. So that is already something relevant. And then even the first white appellation was from there, Korčula Island specifically, Poship. There is also Gurk there. So the other white, even more niche, giving incredible wines. And then don't forget Tribidrag, which is Primitivo or Zinfandel, because it was discovered in more recent times that Tribidrag was the original. Probably they moved to Puglia, Primitivo, and then supposedly the Italians in the migration to America brought it in America where it became Zinfandel. So as you see, Dalmatia is really the most relevant and also the most touristic. So majority of you most probably will go there. So a lot more to discover. There are very little international grapes there. Then in the continental, so if you go to Zagreb, mainly stop there a few days, you will discover more the continental regions because they are closer and more relevant to Zagreb. Also because remember, small quantities, so many Dalmatian wines in particular are not even able to reach Zagreb. Only from Istria, the main wineries from Dalmatia, and then of course a bit all the wineries that are in the continental country. More whites in general, more fresh, aromatic, especially, so there is Slavonia and Danube on the northeastern, bordering Hungary and Serbia. There you have Grashevina, the main grape, which is Riesling Italico, Welsh Riesling, oldest Riesling called in Hungary. So Hungary and Slavonia are the two most relevant regions for production of this grape in a good quality. Grashevina is still the number one planted grape in the country because most of plantations are here. Here is less mountainous, is more hilly, even some flatter areas, smooth hills, so the plantations are more intense. So Grashevina is the first grape for relevance and plantation, is tendentially affordable. You can find in the shop even about 10 euros, and you can have great expressions. Then there are, of course, a lot of international grapes, plus some other local, Frankovka, which is Blaufränkisch or Kekfränkisch, as it's called in Hungary, is also relevant there. And then more in the Zagreb area is Croatian Uplands, more Slovenian or Austrian style. So really whites, more vibrant, is a bit cooler, and several grapes are shared with these countries. So they have Pusipe, which is Furmint, so from Hungary. Then they have the international usual Chardonnay, Sauvignon, etc. And mostly red is Pinot Noir in these regions, the cooler climate. So Pleschivica, to finish up, which is southwest of Zagreb, not far, is very relevant for sparkling, so champenoise methods. So traditional methods are specifically made there, but also all around the country. But that is very characteristic. They have good quality levels and the prices are more affordable than in other countries. And of course they use mostly Chardonnay and Pinot. There is also a lot of German Riesling, Rhine Riesling here, but also in the neighboring subregions. But that is rarely used for the sparkling. But they use some local varieties also in a small percentage. So very interesting also for that. So all these regions you can find a big choice in Zagreb, of course. But more details will follow in the individual videos about the regions. Now some tips. First of all, you will find, except in Zagreb as hinted, in the touristic places you will find mostly the wines from the area, even from the sub-region, especially if you are on islands or small villages. Very little choice, so very localized. That is good and bad because if you don't have a clue, of course, you will have to ask. I always say ask. Test the ground, how is the waiter, if you see, and then for sure they will know a bit at least about their area if they work with some experience. That is always a good way. Then if you see that he's competent, he knows, try to follow a bit the guidance. The cheapest is never the best option, even if, as I said, the quality standards are quite good. Remember that, especially on the coast, season is short, so markups are high, in the restaurants in particular, but even wine bars. Better in Zagreb or other continental areas because there is more reasonable pricing, even if restaurants in general tend to mark quite well. Then I recommend you all the links below of all the videos already done, more professional, more in depth, but there you have a lot of names. I will talk about some of them, but there you have much more information and from different regions. So it's a good guidance. Here is all more generic anyway. I also invite you to subscribe to avoid to miss the next chapters if you are interested. Like also, help us to grow anyway, support us, very welcome. Talking about wines in general now. So, how is your taste? Both wines, more powerful. Then think about Plavasmali, Tribidrag also, but Plavasmali is also more available in particular. That you can find a bit everywhere, but of course if you're in Dalmatia, it's easier to have more choice. As hinted, Dingac and Postup, the two appellations, are the two specific locations where the most prestigious are. But you find great Plavasmali even from other parts of Dalmatia. You can play quite safe. If you want other options, even around the country, there are still Bordeaux blends, so the Merlot Cabernet blends, both in Istria, as we mentioned, in the north, and also in continental, especially in Slavonia area, so in Kutjevo in particular. So remember this place, Kutjevo is the best sub-region of Slavonia. Of course, there they are a bit less powerful, but still the kind of wines. Then you find some Syrah, also Summer and others. If you like more elegant reds, first Babbage is from northern Dalmatia. I didn't mention before because this is very tiny. It's a macro production, only 100,000 bottles total, just a bit more than 12 wineries. That is in a way more comparable to a Pinot Noir. It's still a relative of Plavasmali, but is more gentle, more delicate tannin, and more refined, and can be very nice even after 3-4 years. Of course, then Pinot Noir, mostly from the north, you have some very good ones and even worth prices, mostly in the Zagreb regions, as I hinted before, but something also in Slavonia can be. Then talking about whites, as hinted, the easiest are in the north, but of course if you are on the coast, you will struggle to find the Pushipel I mentioned, or even other of those wines. Very little. In Dalmatia in particular, it's rare to find the northern Croatian wines. From the coast, Malvasia, as hinted, that is always a safe bet in many different situations, but nowadays there are more different vinifications, so you can find even different styles. So still to pay a bit of attention. But usually the entry price, if you have the right names, you go safe for a nice, easy drinking, even low in alcohol, 13 usually. While south in Dalmatia, you have both options. There are some with high acidity naturally, so that keep them vibrant and alive also. But of course, it's warmer. Even the character of some grapes a bit richer, so you tend to have a bit more body. Even some Poship, Gurk depends, and other minor grapes you have some lighter like Debit, for example, or even Marastina. These are easier in Dalmatia. But a nice post ship, if you see also the alcohol level quite low, or even Gerke, or if you get any tip, you go safe. So with this, we finish the first part. The next one will be 2 regions in a few weeks, not right away. I hope you enjoyed and you found it useful and interesting. See you next time, and salute!